Добрый день.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We start the next session, Composites Without Borders, within the framework of business INNOPROM business program. My name is Elena Belevskaya. I coordinate this forum, and let me introduce our today's panelists. Alexander Tunin, General Director of Umatex Group, Anatoly Gaidansky, General Director of Aero Composite, Alexei Safronov, First Deputy of General Director of Sredny Nevsky Shipyard, Alexei Dremichev, Deputy CEO of Umatex Group, Dmitry Kogan, General Director, Prague Advanced Composite Materials, Andrei Shpilenko, Director of Association of Technoparks and Clusters, and we will also have here Pavel Servatinsky, Head of Metallurgy and Materials Department in the Ministry of Industry and Trade. During our previous panel, we heard a lot about composite materials, and it is really important because these are 21st century materials and they play important role in improving competitiveness of strategic industry sectors because these are high-tech materials with low weight, extreme strength, corrosion. They are corrosion proof and have many other advantages in finished products for in different industrial sectors. And we know that nation state pays great attention to development of this industry, and there was even a roadmap adopted to support the composite materials. In 2015, we had program of import substitution, and today we are going to discuss how mass markets are created, how this market is developed in Russia, whether we have this process of import substitution, and whether this industry sector needs this kind of expert substitution. And my first question is about aircraft industry, because this is the primary sector of economy which consumes this kind of materials. In May, the second aircraft took off, this second aircraft with composite wing. And there was international award for development of this composite wing, and Boeing and Airbus voted for you, even though they are actively involved in composite aircraft building, and we know that they have their latest versions of wide-body aircraft, and they have used up to 50% of composites in these wide-body aircraft. Why are you recognized at such extent? I cannot say that our competitors voted for me because we are so nice. I cannot give you answer why they voted for us, but I can tell you that this is for the first time when Russian company was awarded this prize. We call it Composite Oscar between ourselves, but we were not the only company who received it. Here we have our partners in composite materials, Saleh company. They're present here. Why we received this prize? I think the technology that we have developed and that we utilize in MC21, we cannot say that this technology appeared from scratch, that nobody in the world ever had. This is known technology used by Airbus company. They use 787, but no one has ever used this technology for wing. This is a different level of complexity, and no one ever used automatic use distribution of dry material that we offered. In addition to our companies, we had a very extensive team of international experts and different companies. Other companies produced materials for us, and we were looking for the appropriate mixture of composites, and we tested various versions of many companies. Created machines for us. They trusted in us. They made these investments, and so this is the first time when power constructions of the wing longerons performed without autoclave structure. As you know, Boeing and Airbus use this autoclave construction, and Bombardier uses dry material, dry distribution, and only Air Composite was able to perform this automatic distribution of dry material and autoclave-free technology. Maybe that was the reason why we received this prize, and we really appreciate this voting result from global community. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a few words about this program. You are right. We have 2 aircrafts. They are being tested, not only industrial flights, but also certificate flights are being performed. Regarding lack of legislation in composite material use, I do agree that at the time when we started creation of composite wings, we didn't have any legislative basis. But over 9 years, we have those legislative acts appeared. We had techniques of designing, techniques of testing, techniques of correlating our techniques and and we have vast majority of such technical documentation. We continue working with aviation authorities. It's not an easy work, but we adopt documentation that is synchronized with global documentation. We need certificates, not only Russian certificates, but also international certificates. European authorities and American authorities should also approve our aircraft so that would enable us to sell it around the globe. Now we are starting to serious production. We haven't yet received certificates, but we have already started serious productions so that we could have the certificates. Currently, we have 4 experimental aircrafts with these composite wings, and the 5th aircraft is in the process of development. We also have some isolated stands being tested, and we have 2 additional caissons. All this work is in compliance with certification requirements, and we hope that this project will develop according to our planned timeline, and we hope that these aircraft will be used. I would like also to add that our shareholders decided to make additional investments into equipment so that we could produce 6 to 12 aircrafts per year. And now we are buying new equipment to increase this number to 20 aircrafts per year. And our plan, according to our business plan, is a bit more than 70 aircrafts per year. This is regarding MS-21 project. I am not sure whether we should repeat the benefits of composite materials. If you have any questions, I am ready to answer you because I have to catch my flight. Therefore, if there are any questions, We have a wonderful moderator, but I'd like to ask you to elaborate on the project of MS-21, but also to update us on aviation in Russia in general, where composites are used in aircraft development, in helicopter development, in engine production. We use composite materials are used in Sukhoi Superjet 100. It has aluminum wing, but all the other elements, interceptors, and all other details are carbon fiber materials. These are three-layered constructions. Also, different cones. Glass fiber is used for other parts. Also, these composite materials are used in military aviation. BO-57, this is open information. These composites are used in many aviation programs. If we talk about transportation aircraft, it is used in Il-112. We hope this year we will see its first flight. Some mechanical elements are also made of composites. Il-114 also has some elements of mechanical elements, and the greatest amount of composite use is planned in Shefdemes. It will be completely composite aircraft, both body of the aircraft, wings. That is more than 50% of composites. But this is just early stage of the project. Therefore, we are talking about MS because it is already used. It is already tested in flight. And there is new version of Sukhoi Superjet 75, and composite materials will be extensively used in mechanical parts of this aircraft, and also some elements on the wing of the aircraft.
Thank you very much for your comment. Maybe we can let to ask some questions now. Unfortunately, I cannot hear the speaker because the speaker is not using the microphone. Unfortunately, the speaker is still not using the microphone. The wings employ conventional structures. We will have black aluminum, so-called. We have two longerons, then special panels, and then we also use aluminum elements. There is no sense to use composites because they do not provide for the required efficiency in the terms of economy. And then you use the fuel for this idea, and you use also some additional elements to protect the wing to make it hold better in case a bird flies into the plane. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Anatoly. We've said during our previous session that the market of composites is growing. We know that the international market accounts for about 80,000 tons of materials already. The Russian market is a lot smaller. And we want to extend and to develop. I have a question to Alexander Tunin. What is your view on the development opportunities for this market? What are the drivers for getting us further into bring us to the international levels. Thank you very much. During our previous session, we discussed international trends, we discussed the industries that use composites, and during this session, we'd like to speak about the Russian market and Russian projects. And also, we will discuss the desired effects. Russian market accounts for less than a percent of the global market, and the global market is about 80,000 tons annually. Japan, Europe, and the US are the leaders in composites. We have a chance to overcome this gap in terms of technology. We can complete an entire production chain, and that includes everything, all types of filaments, all protrusion products, and all prepregs. And these are the drivers for our success. I do not believe that the governmental subsidies can stimulate the market in the right way, that can develop a good atmosphere, but that cannot create investment by itself. And in order to receive a very good price, we need to make this market and this industry very attractive for the investors. What are the industries that can provide for such increase? We have a target of 3,000 carbon fibers and carbon fiber products by 2025. At that time, the world market is estimated to be about 160,000 tons, and we hope that we can achieve our internal goal. I also want to add that there are some projects for helicopters, and a lot of helicopters use composites. The Kazan helicopter factory is showcased here at INNOPROM right now, and you see that they're using a lot of composites. Now, new composite blades and new composite engines using composite blades are being used. We also mentioned shipbuilding. Today, among our panelists, we have one representative from the Srednyi shipyard, and they will tell for themselves about the project that they are working on right now. This market is growing now seriously, and this is an industry that has a great potential. And there are also private recreational vessels, and they focus on Asian markets. These projects use composites. There are ships that are 100% composite. We also discussed wind energy. I'll give some more details. Two main companies, Rosatom and Rosnano, but they have different approaches. Rosnano uses Vestas expertise. This is a company that is their partner, and they produce blades for the power generations here. And the main obligation is to localize production. And currently, together with Rosnano, we're trying to create a new protrusion stiffener right here in Russia made of carbon fibers. Rosatom will use the services of Humatex to make the blades, to design the new blades. These will also be protrusion stiffening blades that we will use. These projects that are already approved will allow us to increase the Russian market and to expand it The production of these two types of blades will need to have from 300 to 400 tons of composites per year. Now about aviation. Now aviation annually uses about 250 tons of materials. In the short term, we will have a need for 400, 500 tons of composites annually. Then there is also a lot of future demand for these ships that are now being constructed. Our main target is to have mass production of such composite ships. Another area that we're looking at is the development of new fuels. Our colleagues will tell about this later. We're planning to work together with the world leader of gas vessels made of new type of composites. That is a Norwegian company that we will work with. And the second project that we're looking at is aimed at providing gas to remotely located villages, or to provide gas to gas stations that are very remotely located, that will provide better accessibility of fuels. And we're looking at Ottawa's gas as our customers. We have already signed an agreement with our Norwegian partners to launch this production facility. We plan to finish the construction of the facility within the next 2 years, and that will add more than 400 tons to our market annually. We already mentioned that it is needed to make a transition to this type of fuels, and I think that this will stimulate the Russian market of composites. Now, construction industry, it is a huge topic in itself. I suppose that this is the industry that holds the greatest potential for decreasing the cost price of composites. A lot is now being used abroad, a lot of composites. I mean, there are a lot of nuclear power stations abroad that are being constructed. All the elements and equipment needed for these construction projects will use composites, and this will also make the industry more attractive for investors. We don't want to produce everything by ourselves. That is not the real target. We want to work with partners. We are ready to sign contracts with the manufacturers. These will be contracts for 5 to 7 years of cooperation. We already have now our first partners. And then there is also sports goods, and our colleagues will tell about this later. Now I want to speak about the cluster. I have already mentioned that in Tatarstan, Moscow region, and Saratov region, we have planned for the creation of a Russian composites industrial cluster, and we have planned a lot of projects for these production facilities. And an important thing is also to create a special environment. We are ready to launch joint ventures. We are ready to become stockholders in investment projects. The government support that is present in various shapes currently is available to entrepreneurs through clusters. Clusters is a shortest way to receive subsidies, and we are ready to account for 50% of all the costs for creating and setting up a manufacturing facility. Now, I want to say as a conclusion that composites are to be promoted. If we speak about the framework, the regulatory framework for these materials, I have to say that we've done a lot together with the Ministry of Industry, and all the participants of the industrial composites market now are working on elaborating regulatory documents to support the development of the market. Our forum, Composites Without Borders, will take place on October 25th. We foresee to have a lot of Russian participants. These are manufacturers and customers for composites. There will also be several international participants. We will have our partners and experts in composites. They are having a first-hand experience in using composites, and we would like to invite you to participate. We think that you will find something of interest to you.
Thank you. I've got a question to Pavel Servatinsky. We have already mentioned some state support measures, and Ministry of Industry and Trade has been working in this field quite a long time, using roadmaps and supports import substitution, and probably now we can make some assessments what measures were more successful or less successful. What else should we do to create mass markets, to develop this production further, to develop this industry? Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for this question. I should say that all support measures are effective by the Ministry of Industry and Trade because they are versatile and systemic. Since 2013, we launched a sub-program of the program of composite development. It was part of global governmental program of improving compatibility in those sectors of economy where composites were least used, and unlike space industry and such fields as construction, public utilities, transportation system, where production costs are really important. We live in a country of metal and concrete, and in many other countries they have much more limited resources. And if we talk specifically, many of you know different forms of state support. It can be done in the form of subsidies for interest rates or support funding of research and development projects, and each invested ruble each investment should be supported in terms of efficiency. What was the difficulty that we faced? We faced difficulties in raw material segment, such as binding materials, and we used export materials, and their cost increased significantly, and we were able to manually find the solution for this program. And there are also there is a number of projects where the projects are continued to be realized. We are talking about balloons, about constructions, capacity machineries for the various aggressive media where we should also apply our efforts. During the previous session, I tried to bring your attention to that, but everybody discussed aircraft building and space industry. But I think that in aviation, in space industry, we have to struggle for expertise, but in these sectors that I mentioned, it's really important. This issue of costs is really important, and we have to improve this lifetime cycle. And in addition to financial support from the government, we also have some orders by the president, and during previous session I mentioned the number of legislative acts that were adopted. Each region, with some few exceptions, has a development program for composite sector, and there are sectoral programs in each government agency. What is lacking is purchasing, procurements. My colleague from UMATEX Group said the right thing. Key consumer is construction sector, and today our president gave us task to achieve affordable and high quality construction parameters, and capex is going to be more expensive. In the end of the last year, we were able to negotiate and with all other key government agencies, this technique of assessment, of lifetime cycle assessment, and this is the issue of interest from state-owned governments. As federal agencies, we can only guide this work, and we can be the platform for discussion. We provide funding. We supported. We have been supporting some forums for the last 3 years. Within a year, we have 4 events, including Composites Without Borders, supported by Ministry of Industry and Trade. And now many manufacturers are ready to participate. They come up with some suggestions, and now the initiative belongs to customers, because budget is not very complicated thing, subsidies from the state, and therefore my suggestion is as follows. I do hope that in Composites Without Borders we will be able to discuss some details as a regulating agency, as a major player in this process, and probably Rosatom will be able to show us this procurement considering lifetime cycle. Thank you very much. But regardless of state government programs, we work within a global competition, and I think that all players are interested in improving its competitiveness, and we can do it with the help of improvement of lifetime cycle and the use of high-tech materials. And yes, and another short comment. I'd like to thank Pavel for this short message. As Rosatom, we act as manufacturer of composites on the market. Therefore, we know all these problems, and this factor of primary cost is really important in state tenders, and quite often it becomes the most important factor when composites are not used, because proceedings of procurement do not have all the appropriate instruments to assess all the factors, all the parameters to make the right procurement decision. On the other hand, we are a governmental company. We have procurement regulations, and more often we do not make such decisions. And therefore, 1 month ago, we created a task force in Rosatom to include lifetime cycle, to include into analysis for when we decide about procurements. And I think that we will be able to take some practical steps at the level of this task force, and we will be able to offer some solutions. Therefore, many thanks, and we will work together to solve this issue. Thank you very much. And it was fairly said that we talked a lot about aircraft industry, but we also have representative of Sredny Nevsky shipyard here, Alexei Safronov. We all know that last year, Griffon catamaran, which has carbon fiber body, and we know that shipbuilding industry is using composites actively. We would like to know your strategy. Is it difficult to make such decision to use composites in production? Because we heard that certification process is very difficult. How do you solve these issues of certification when you implement composites, and how this use of utilization of composites improves your competitiveness? I would like to run my presentation, and I will share some history of using composites in shipbuilding industry. A few words about major trends in global shipbuilding industry. It's not a secret that composites have been used in sporting vessels, fishing boats, hydrocycles, ferries, and military ships, etc., etc. We all know that composites have been long used. But what is the driver of the composite use? We should go back to the history of life cycle. Costs for purchasing any ship or any vessel is just the tip of the iceberg. The major costs happen when we use the ship. We know that ship is built over 2 or 3 years, but it is used more than 30 years, and major costs are related to fuel and maintenance of the ship. This slide shows you, these are not our figures, these are European data. If we compare cost of life cycle of vessels from steel, aluminum, and composite, we know that at the level of construction and designing, steel is the cheapest, and then next on the second place is aluminum, and composite is the most expensive. But but steel has the shortest life cycle. Aluminum approaches 25 years, and composites approach 30 years and beyond. And it means that, if we count per year, composite vessel is cheaper. But not every customer sees this situation, has this point of view. In Russia, Sredny Nevsky shipyard has been using composites since 1963. We had military contracts and state support, and we should understand that new materials are developed for military demands. In recent years, we started thinking about certifications, and our first serious project was passenger catamaran called Griffon. This is the only boat which is produced from carbon fiber, and this is the only certified manufacturing in Russia. This vessel is manufactured and it is being utilized. Regarding legislative basis, all the issues are solved. Today, we are even setting questions that are not yet solved globally, because there are some. We have to use composites in various other areas, and there is great niche of using composites in lead production. In our company, we use all the newest technologies in the world, including contact formation and vacuum infusion and RTM light. Regarding expert substitution, the first product that we launched were made from import materials. It was about 10 years ago, but 3 years ago we started new programs supported by Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we started working with domestic suppliers of glass fibers and binding materials, and our nearest plans are to use light materials, light filler materials. And a few words about this boat. This is a passenger boat. Its body is made entirely from carbon fiber. It has 150 passenger seats. It was a unique project because we never had such vessels in Russia, and our customer, these boats are built in Norway, but we ended up with similar product. Over 5-6 years, due to fuel saving, these vessels become cost effective. And currently, even in Norway, almost all shipyards start using composites. Some of them are using aluminum, but they do not use black metals. Traditionally we compare steel-made vessels, aluminum-made vessels, and composites, and we see the cost effectiveness over the years.
We do have an opinion why we cannot succeed. Now, we lack good customers for the shipping routes. We have large companies for aviation routes, and there are no major companies with state participation that are this large. There is no customer that can place a mass order for these composite vessels. Now we have a client that says, okay, I am developing a new project and I need the cheapest possible solution, and I do not know what to do in about 4 years' time. This is the problem that we are facing. If you look at Kalashnikov, for example, now they are developing a new type of vessels. They build a facility in Crimea, but that is a different type of vessel. We are looking into recreational and speedboats that are intended for private markets. They allow people to have some rest during their travels. And composites are used for lighter weight of your boat. There are also the propellers that use composites, and that allows to reduce weight by 25-30%, and you improve your performance, in fact. Then there is another point, the accessories and auxiliary equipment for vessels. We know that some rivers and canals are not cleaned and maintained well in our country, and we understand that we need to create auxiliary equipment to deal with this. And these auxiliary parts allow to reduce weight, to save the fuel, and they also increase the safety of the passengers. That was something related to the passenger transportation. Let's now look at the freight transportation. We can use composites to move larger sizes of freight. That means that we need to reduce the cost of the composite material. Now, composites are more expensive than steel, and in fact, these investments do return, but many are not interested to invest because of the cost price. Now, we have certified this year a special vessel door. This product is 10-25% lighter than a similar aluminum door, and it is also lighter than the steel door, and that influences the fuel consumption, and you can reduce the consumption of fuel thanks to lighter weight, of course. Comparing the present and the future, I think that the situation with composites for shipbuilding is even more promising than for aviation, and we are the only shipbuilding company in Russia that builds large ships. And actually, we're not doing enough, we're not doing a lot, because our fleet is to be seriously updated, and we're not really using all of the river flows that we have in our country. And so we lack scale at the moment. We need to have very good players in the market of river and sea passenger transportation. If this player is ready to pay a lot now, but to save a lot in the future, that will provide for millions of tons of composites consumed in the short term. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for telling us about composites in shipbuilding. We have heard Alexander Tunin today, and he said that the industrial application for composites is a lot wider. Now I have a question to Alexei Dremichev. What are the possible projects for the composites in the future? We say that there are new types of fuels, for example. What else? Thank you very much. In the beginning, I would like to say that we have a window of opportunity that is large, very large, to develop the consumption of composite materials. Such companies as Territorial are the companies that are now adding the value of their products. They are working with the raw material, and they're also creating end products. They are designing end products. They're trying to connect the design thinking and the actual end products. Then there is also a crisis that tells us that composites have constraints, but at the same time that opens up opportunities for our future. Composites can give us a possibility to become very competitive in terms of labor efficiency. In China now, the labor is becoming more expensive in the composite manufacturing. Then, energy sources is another concern, and the raw material for composites is localized here in Russia, except for some binders. We will even add some rare precursors later, and we do have all the necessary facilities to produce the ingredients for these composites. And then composites is something that can be an export good. Here it is not the price that you're looking at. Here the major concern is an end product. We look into projects for wind blades, for the high pressure vessels, and also we work on sporting goods. These are three separate projects. They have similar challenges. Price is one of these challenges. The price that the market is expecting now is actually comparative to the price of international producers. And then another point is to have a very good quality. No one wants to have a bad material. Then you look at the market needs. This is the third thing. If no one needs your product, you don't have to develop it. Here we try to not just adopt something that we see is done abroad. We try to innovate, we try to create something new. Then we have to certify, then we have to develop, and that can take up to 5 years. Unfortunately, the market cannot wait. What we can do is we can borrow some international and foreign technologies and implement this here in our Russian market. We can use the expertise of our engineers and designers and become competitive. Now, regarding the project of blades, I want to say that this is a huge project. It can enhance the industry of carbon fibers dramatically. We will need to produce 2.5 thousands of these blades that will create jobs, that will increase the consumption of fibers. The blades that we will make have a new design. These blades can be used not only for the Ross Adams turbines. They can also be used for some turbines that are used in the European Union, and that gives you a lot of potential. You can export abroad, and that also increases your competitiveness. Then these blades are followed by another project. This is a project of these high pressure uh, vessels. And these vessels may account for 8 to 9 thousandths of composite materials per year. These vessels are also part of the alternative energy ideas. Everybody is now speaking about green economy and renewable energy. These items can be used for electric vehicles. In the European Union, the methane gas is widely used for the vehicles, and the minister actually, Denis Manturov gave a comment yesterday. He said that in the nearest future, the support measures for electronic vehicles are to be supported, and we think that this is a very promising field in Russia. The competitive edge, of course, is that you can reduce the logistic costs. The gas vehicles are to be more efficient than conventional vehicles, and that can influence the end price of a product. And even without government support, you can see a lot of advantages. What are the main challenges? These are the costs of the vehicles. If you do not have a mass production, you have the problem with the cost. Another part of problems is lack of infrastructure. There are no relative fueling stations, for example, and the cost price of the entire process. That is the third point. We can make a contribution to make the production of these vessels cheaper. They have larger capacity, they can have more gas inside, and we can make them comparable to the conventional Type 2 and Type 3 vessels. Another thing, we will try to develop a project of mobile fueling stations, and that can resolve the accessibility issue. This will be used for transportation and for cleaning equipment and for regular vehicles. Lada has one of the projects that can use this technology. Then we have LPG gas that can be used as a point of growth for the fuel developments. Then the other applications can be long haul transportations. You can also apply that for shipping and for railway transportation. In general, that can reduce logistic costs. Now, like Alexander said already, we have chosen a Norwegian partner. The name of the company is Hexagon. They produce about 60 to 70% of the vessels of Type 4 in the US and the European Union, and there are a lot of opportunities to enter Asian markets. A project that is understandable for everyone is the project related to sporting goods. In China, for example, about 7,000 tons per year are used to produce sporting goods. These are golf clubs, fishing rods, various elements for bikes, and then a lot of other sporting goods. They're all produced in China. Now we understand that uh, we have certified our products in China already. We have good infrastructure to export these goods to the European Union, and we also have better conditions for paying for our facilities, and that means that we now can become even more competitive than Chinese producers, and we can become the leaders in fishing rods. Then hockey equipment can also be one of the major fields, and hockey is actually something that is becoming more and more important. And then we have another project for bicycles, and this is something that can be great and that can give a lot of advantages. There are some scooters actually now that usually use aluminum, but we have now provided for a project that can have scooters made of composites. This is a very interesting solution. We have talked with a lot of retailers in sports goods, and we understood that we have a lot of potential. We can also look into developing an R&D center, and that can increase our competitiveness, and we can export our goods. To summarize, I think that these three projects cannot be the limit of our composite industry. And we are now thinking that there are other possibilities to develop the industry of composites. We need to substitute the imports, and we need to become export oriented. And we should stop being a commodity exporter only. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a question about import substitution to Dmitry Kogan. We have just heard about import substitution of finished products, which is really great thing. If we can produce carbon fiber sport in inventory, it's really great because it would create impetus for development of economics of regions. But if we talk about existing projects that use foreign materials, to what extent the import substitution can solve all our problems? We heard that we could use some bond. If there is some problem with bonding materials, we have some difficulties with import substitution in terms of bonding materials. Thank you for your question. I do agree that this is the problem of our mindset. Anything that we hear from above, from our government, we start doing it. No one country has zero import. We are all part of global economy. We cannot substitute everything, especially if the company has resources. We have to be honest. We know that resources are limited. Therefore, this process of import substitution should be really meaningful, and I would divide this issue into two components. First, we have pool of some tasks that are related to defense of the country and technological independence of the country. Of course, we have to maximally substitute import goods and create our own reserves, backups, to maintain our defense potential. And there is commercial part of the issue. It is dictated by the market. And we have to weigh the things, what we are going to substitute. Can we substitute epoxy materials? There are a few major players in the world, and maybe it makes no sense to substitute these products because we have much more urgent issues to deal with. We talked a lot about aircraft industry. We are struggling with the MS-21, all countries involved, carbon fiber wing. But look, we use technology developed by Gaidansky. It's very specific, advanced technology. When we use high strength carbon fiber, we do not have many components to produce this kind of a composite wing. Therefore, we had to gather international team to create this composite team. And at that time, he had no choice because this project should have been implemented. But in order to produce materials for aircraft wing, we should start with nitrile acrylic acid and start with specific ribbon to nitrile acrylic acid. We can find it polyacryl nitrile. We can also have it, but it's quite a long-lasting project, and we may not be on time to certify the product. Yes, we are dealing with carbon fiber. Alexander told us about these projects, but still we can work in cooperation and use import products, import materials to maybe to a lesser extent, but still use. Do you know how many companies produce this special ribbon which is used to create wing? Only one company in the world. Therefore, our aircraft is dependent upon this aircraft. This is the thing that we should be thinking about. Another thing that I'd like to add, we had a discussion with Pavel Servatinsky, and we cooperate extensively with Industry and Trade Ministry, and we are working on roadmaps for industry. And when we started this work, lots of people regarded it as a versatile solution for all the projects, but it is just instrument which allows us to implement different materials in terms of import substitution. We started cooperation with OAC to substitute materials in MS-21, and it turned out that the amount is small, the cost is low, and this is not cost-effective project. Therefore, we started developing this roadmap and found out that for key design and engineering bureaus working on similar types of constructions, but each designing bureau historically uses different approaches, different materials, different amounts, and the number of materials used for similar constructions is over 15. And we understood that we can cover all their needs using 5 or 6 types of materials, and we can get competitive product for global market. And this we save in terms of testing and implementing. Also, we have guaranteed orders, and we are able to create efficient production chain. OAC is interested because they need to perform less testing, and Industry and Trade Ministry has also savings because roadmap shows that this project is economically cost effective because it gives commercial product, and the company itself can bear some production costs. And another product is needed anyway, therefore state governmental support needed anyway. So Trade and Industry and Trade Ministry has more information. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Regarding Industry and Trade Ministry, it really helps composite companies. As we understand, we learned from Alexander that there is a kind of cooperation, and Humatex company stimulates this cooperation between composite companies. Today we have Andrei Shpilenko, Director of Association of Technoparks and Clusters. It turned out that cluster story is successful as well. It can also help companies to cooperate, to create new productive facilities, to expand markets. Can you tell us about these instruments, how they work, and what benefits we can get? Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, before I tell about it, my question to the audience, could you please tell me if there is some X company and it guarantees that you can purchase some product. Initially, it was buying it from abroad, but now this X company is ready to buy this product from you. If you have some small investments, will you be ready to initiate production if you have guaranteed demand? Let's avoid a discussion about guarantees. I personally can guarantee that I will buy product from you. I will sign it, this obligation with my blood. But can you tell me, will you do it? As a reasonable person, I say that if somebody promises me that they are ready to buy from me, but I will sell my liver and I will become rich and happy person. Why I started with this example? All the speakers were talking about technical details very beautifully, but if we translate it into Russian, it turns out that we created a sector with some niches, and you are welcome to make investments, and we will help, and we can answer you who is going to buy from you. Those of you who will be here till the end of this session, you will be able to understand what directions deserve investments and what directions have guaranteed demand. And now I will speak Russian. You may remember that after 1991, there was sharp disruption of economic bondages, interactions between companies. Some companies became extinct. Some other companies started buying machinery and some details abroad, but the consumer never thought about the share of import components in this product. But what was the result? We had lots of import parts. There were national security was compromised, and finally, when we adopted federal law about industrial politics in 1994 and in December 31, and I stressed that business loves stability. And this federal law said that one of major tools for development of regional politics is political clusters. But cluster is a complex of territorial industrial complex that existed in Soviet Union. And this was signal from the government to the business that you should reestablish these cooperative connections, and we will stimulate you by reducing production costs by 50%. That is, government, nation state took some kind of obligations to subsidize costs during production process, at different stages of production process. What was the unique about it, and what Humatex did? Humatex took a very important function of unifying this sector, economical sector. And another digression, recently we had strategic council on new industries held by Denis Manturov and Vestas company. When addressing this council, they told that they do localize components for wind energy units, but they have a problem. Some parts they buy from abroad. Those of you who understand, we can understand that some parts are more expensive because not all our technologies are competitive, and we do buy some technologies, and therefore production cost of certain product can be higher than if we buy it abroad. And I felt like giving advice to such a company to expand their horizons, because we have industrial clusters that can solve these issues. Dear colleagues, these are my slides. We have already mentioned that UMATEX took upon itself a difficult task to form composite industry sector in Russian Federation, and they detected those regions with highest percentage of companies that produce some parts or end products in Moscow region, in Saratov region, in Tatarstan. It does not mean that other regions are unable to join this cluster, but they created this skeleton of this cluster. How it looks like, how industrial cluster looks like. I will repeat myself. This is territorial industrial complex. You see that this chain is divided into several links. On the left angle, you see lots of companies that produce different types of products. And there are lots of companies that produce end products, but few people think about percentage of domestic materials in these finished products. And if we move to the left, we see that less and less companies are dealing with domestic products. And Humatex described the entire technological chain.
And now I want to say, when you have an industrial cluster, it means that the participating manufacturers automatically receive a chance to subsidize up to 50% of their production costs. And that includes R&D subsidies, the technology subsidies, subsidies for prototypes, for loans, repayments. That means that is everything that you require to manufacture goods and products. This means that your industry is interesting for investments. That means that you can manage the quality in such conditions. For example, I tell my colleagues from Lipetsk, and I tell them, well, the product, the filament, for example, that you supply to me is of bad quality, and I tell you that I want something better, and you tell me, well, how can I improve it? I am responding to you, you do that, you improve the quality, and the government is ready to subsidize 50% of your costs to do that. Now, let's look at the next slide. When you look carefully at the production chain, you see that Humatex is a leader in this terms. They can see an entire industry. They can understand all the problems in each stage of production. And there are various problems in these stages. Let's discuss some examples. Up to 95% of production is dealing with glass fiber. And actually, 95% of the glass fiber is something that is purchased abroad. Pre-Prague's market, for example, we purchase up to 60-70% abroad in France and in the US. This is actually an insider information. We are speaking about an entire industry. Let's look at the composite vessels. This is what we are purchasing now, and the imported share is about 100% now. I'm trying to make an outline of the industry that we have. So now we know who buys what and at which stage. Now, that means that if you have a potential investor, regional authorities, the government, or any inventor and innovator, for example, they can see that the estimated investments for glass fiber production can constitute 1.3 billion rubles. And that has some examples. You have some companies that are ready to purchase your glass fiber, and that refers to all types of production stages. Each stage has a critical quantity, and you know who your customer could be. I have to finish right here at this moment. Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to explain completely what I wanted to explain, and I want the companies to participate in these clusters. I want investors to arrive, and not many are doing that. Actually, there is a Russian engineering company that is sitting right here at this moment, and they are looking into the investments that they can do. Now it makes sense to create clusters, to look into cluster developments, and you have to invest now. I see here a person who seems to be a developer. I think that clusters is actually a very good instrument for you. You now don't have to beg for money for some developments that you want to work on, and clusters can be a good instrument for you if you have an idea. You come to a manufacturer and you tell them, I want to produce a new substance. And this manufacturer tells you, yes, we are ready to purchase this particular substance. And then that is a joint cluster project, and the government is ready to subsidize these costs. Colleagues, I am over with my presentation. Maybe that was a bit unsystematic, but I do hope that you have understood what the recommendations are to develop cluster projects, and now you understand the industry of composites better. Thank you very much. Andrei, thank you very much for being so emotional. Now I want to make a comment, actually. We had a very good question from our audience. What are the guarantees that you will have a market where you can sell your products? Now, I want to give you some examples of specific cases. Let's take wind energy. Except for the blades, you can also have some parts of the turbine body parts that can also use some composites. We have a partner for such a project. We signed a contract for 4 years with such a partner, and there is an obligation to buy these products, and the supply will continue for 4 years. And then there are special composite reinforcements that also can be one of the development areas. We know that now construction is one of the industries that uses a lot of composites, and there is still a way to go. Our job is not to develop and to manufacture everything by ourselves. There is a number of manufacturers in Russia who we are ready to partner with, and we are ready to have them as our partners for nuclear plant construction. We are now expert reviewing these materials, and as soon as that is done, we're ready to sign long-term contracts, and that will provide for the economic feasibility of these materials. And then we are also developing a special market. We are interested not only in R&D center that can create its own technological solutions. We work with preprex fabrics and carbon fiber, but in fact composites mean much more. We are interested in buying companies as well. We are not looking to become the only owners of a company. We can be one of these stockholders in a company. All these possibilities that we have within our composite area of activity and within the venture fund that we have, the opportunities are real and great, and they are vast, and entrepreneurs can join us. The market of composites is the fastest growing market in the world. We used to have a double-fold increase each 10 years, and now this pace is going to become even faster, and we will see that the pace will be huge, and this means that entrepreneurs can come and work in this market, and we are ready to provide our support. Thank you very much indeed. I think that there are some questions in the audience, and you now can have a chance to ask these questions to our panelists. Unfortunately, the speaker is not using the microphone, and the interpreter cannot hear the question. I already gave you an example. Galena is one of these companies. They're not the only ones. There are 5 pilot products. We can use products for the construction of nuclear power plants. If you have some suggestions, we are interested in them, and you can contact us. Now we are working with designers to test everything, to certify everything. We invite you to provide your support. Unfortunately, the interpreter cannot hear the speaker because the microphone is not working. Galena is not represented here. We have exchanged our contacts, and I can actually help you to contact Galena if you wish to. Unfortunately, the speaker is not using the microphone, and that is why the interpreter cannot hear the question. Unfortunately, the speaker is still not using the microphone, and the interpreter cannot hear the question. speaker is still not using the microphone, and that is why the interpreter cannot hear the question. The speaker is still not using the microphone, and that is why the interpreter cannot hear the question. I've given you my contacts. I invite you to our R&D center in Moscow. We can organize a meeting with Galena and discuss these issues that you've mentioned. We are interested in this. The next question, please. I have a comment rather than a question. I work in the industry that is related to composites. Rosatom and Humatex are doing something very significant for the market of composites. And thanks to your work, the standards and the solutions are now being elaborated. What I want to say is that now we see that there are not so many people, but the industry is not that large as well. But it is not large because there are not so many customers as large as Rosatom, and there have to be many of them. Such clients as Rosatom can guarantee the sales for you, and these have to be government companies. Let's look at China, for example. Why is it developing its industry so fast? They have a lot of participants of this composite market, and they have already gained a lot. You are trying to copy in a way what China has already implemented, but there is still a great way to go. But you're doing good, and we praise your efforts, and we're looking forward to your success. Another thing, there is something that I totally do not understand. You are now working with your designers. You ask them to design structures for the construction of nuclear power plants. As I see, for the next 10-15 power stations, your main job is to refurbish old power plants or to construct some new power plants abroad. I don't know if there is some construction planned for Russia. And here, Rosatom provides engineering, but the material supply is not really included into these projects. If you say that you are ready to use reinforcement in your project, then the question is, this reinforcement is made anywhere, like in Canada, for example, and I have to say that it would be nice if we supply a lot of material abroad. Isn't something that we're looking forward to, or we are speaking about something else? When we are designing a power plant, especially those that Rosatom is planning, does that mean that we will use these materials that you intend to use? Andrei, thank you very much for your question, and I want to reply to you.
We are talking not only about carbon fibers, we are the only manufacturer of carbon fiber, but when we talk about composite production in general. We talk about basalt fiber, glass fiber. Therefore, we are happy to welcome you on this session. We welcome basalt fiber manufacturers as well, because we have to find cost-effective solutions to improve competitiveness, both in terms of traditional materials like metal, concrete, and other. Answering regarding your question, everything is very different. First of all, I personally cannot tell you on behalf of Rosatom, but personally, I do not think that government should 100% provide 100% funding to develop this sector. States should provide conditions for development. But this tenfold expansion of the sector is not due to state procurements, but due to thanks to development of the market. And state is strict procurer. And Anatoly Gaidansky is not ready to pay more than he pays for American or European products. He is prepared to buy at a cheaper price to avoid custom fees, etc. And some 30 years ago, our composites were far more expensive than European or American products. But we have to perform this import substitution naturally, but not using administrative measures. Regarding construction of atomic power stations, we are planning 33 power stations within several years in the territory of 15 countries. But Rosatom does not buy other divisions from Umatex, from its division, at a more expensive price compared to Western suppliers. If we talk about lower level of production establishment, it's really simple. We have to establish a production line in the territory of Egypt or other country. If we have technology and equipment, we can arrange local manufacturing facility. We can produce some product and then bring it to the third country. And the third thing, if we produce this product by ourselves or with our manufacturers, with our partners, this product should be high quality. And when we talk about balloons, about sporting inventory, about blades, the same logic applies here. We should not use state resources to provide to provide sales by other means than competitiveness, competitive properties of the product. If we have high-quality product with better properties, we will have good demand, and we would not be able to supply 300 tons of carbon fiber to Europe or China if it were poor in terms of quality. And we have time for the last question. Unfortunately, I know that carbon fiber is used for musical instruments, also for parts of musical instruments. Yes, this list is very long. This is a quite simple story. The world is moving towards using new composite materials, not only carbon fibers, but nanomodified materials with nanotubes added to conventional materials, etc. And we see constant decrease of price, and it enables scaling at much faster rate. Each year we see something new, furniture and many other things. The list is endless. Designers are actively using carbon fibers and glass fibers. If we talk about shipbuilding, a lot of composites are used for interior works. These are quite wide horizons. Unfortunately, the question is not asked using microphone. New materials are using different characteristics in terms of life cycle, in terms of physical properties, because I can assure you that year after year we will see some even fast-moving consumer goods produced from composites. Many thanks to everyone for being here today. Many thanks to our speakers for such an interesting panel discussion. We invite you to our forum, Composites Without Borders, October 25th in Skolkovo in Moscow. We will discuss composites and various aspects that we didn't have time to discuss here. Thank you very much and see you later. See you in Skolkovo.